Hi guys, Xavier here, bringing you a brand new video. In today's video, bringing you a brand new deck profile for Noble Knights. Now, I stopped running these for a little while. I kind of went back to my Six Samurai deck for a little while because we had gotten some stuff back, and Six Samurai has always been one of my favorite decks, but I wound up retiring that, and I rebuilt my Noble Knights because now I missed this deck, and this deck is still a good deck. Can contend with a lot of decks in today's game. I'd still say it's a solid tier 2 deck, and it can't compete with some of the brand new stuff that's out and is going to be coming out, but this is still a magnificent deck. And I mean by that, by like the Perform Mages and Magus Specters and the Draco Slayers and stuff like that. This deck just it's too easy for those decks to get around a lot of this stuff, but this is still a very solid deck, like I said. So let's quickly get started with what we got here. So first off, a standard 3 Noble Knight Madrot. You need to run 3 of this. This is going to be your main playmaker. You really want to try to get into this card your first hand if possible. The next best card of the deck is triple Noble Knight Boars. This is also the other playmaker you need, but to get the combos off, you really need this card. But this is the guy that's he's pretty much your searcher for your equip spells for the deck, so that's really good. And it also helps send some to the graveyard, so you can get your plays off. So those are probably the main cards that you're going to want to get into. So then we got a couple of one-ofs for this deck. We have one Noble Knight Gwaine. I used to run 2 of this, but one seems perfectly fine. One Noble Knight Gwalchavad. This is the one that's going to return monsters from your graveyard to your hand. Then we got one Noble Knight Dristan. This is going to be pretty much your card. If you really can't get over something, you can pop one of their face-up cards. So. Then we got Noble Knight Bedweir. I know some people take this card out altogether anymore, but I use this card a lot. And even though I go into the Boars and Madrot more often than not, sometimes I need to go into him, or he's like another choice. So I still really like him. There's some good combos I can pull off with him. Then we got one Noble Knight Brothers. I know a lot of people now run this 2 to 3 cards. I tried running it at 3 and at 2, and they both seem to work really well, but I honestly felt I missed some of these other cards to get some of these other plays off, and I've honestly not missed this card at 2 or 3. I think this is perfectly fine at 1, but if you want to run more than one, be my guest, because you can't go wrong with more. I just don't. It's still really good at 1. So then we got one Ignoble Knight of Black Launcelin. This is an awesome card. Get some really good combos off. It's pretty much a free 2000 beat stick. Then we'll have triple Merlin, because this is actually also a searcher. With Rhoda being to 1 now, this is going to search out for your Noble Knights that you need. Probably going to go into Madrot more than not, because again, you want to try to get into your main play as quick as you possibly can. Then we got a couple cards that aren't Noble Knights. 2 Max C. I main deck this one. It's a great card, but it's a little slow, I guess. I mean, it's a good hand trap to stop your opponent. I dabbled around with 2 Upstart Goblins in the deck instead of the Max C, but they both work fine. But I wound up deciding to go with Max C because it's going to help defend yourself a little bit better. Because it's going to force your opponent to not really, special summon. Even though they still can, you'll draw to it. Then we have one Effect Veiler, because it's a tuner for the deck to get into the 1 synchro of the deck. But it's also just a good card, stop your opponent's effect. So now we'll get to the kind of the spells. Well, we're going to be getting into the spells, but we're going to do the Noble Arms first. And the first 2 Noble Arms we're going to have is Gwynnefer, Queen of the Noble Arms. Even though it's a monster, it's pretty much acts as a Noble Arms, and a lot of people actually, I think, run 1 of this card now, but I tried running it at 1, and I don't know, I just really like having this card at 2. You really want to try to get at least a Noble Arms card in your hand, in your first hand, as quick as you can, because that's what you're going to need to get your combos off. And just having 2 it helps a little bit more, even though it's not really the one that you want to get into for the combo if it's your only equip. But it's still, I really actually prefer having 2 of that card. So now for our actual spells, our rest of our Noble Arms, I run 2 Noble Arms of Destiny, because this stops your monster from being destroyed by battle once per turn. Then we have 2 Excalibur, which makes it so your monster can't be targeted, which is also great. But this is also the only one where you can't re-equip your equips. Most of the equips you can, if they're destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you can re-equip it once that turn to the same card or a different card depending on your strategy. But this is one of the oddballs. Same with Guinevere, because you can't re-equip them. But this is definitely a really good card because it also can work as a rank up for your Exceeds. Two Gelatins. It gives your monster 1,000 attack, but it loses 200 every turn. But normally, if you're using this card, the 200 every turn isn't going to be too detrimental, because hopefully you'll get your win before his attack gets that low for it to matter. So then we have 2 Noble Arms Caliburn, because it gives your monster 500 attack, which is weaker than the Gelatin, but it also gives you life points, which is also really good. And I used to run 1, but I went up to 2 because I wanted that extra Noble Arms card to try to get into on your first turn. Then I run 1 Noble Arms Arfiter, I believe you pronounce this one. This is the one I go into the least of the deck, but you can still get some good combos of it. You make your monster permanently lose 500 attack while it's on the field, and you pop one of your opponent's face down cards. So it's a good card, but to me it's a little situational. Depends on what your opponent has, which is why I only run 1. And losing 500 attack can be kind of hurtful, but it can be useful as well. So that's it for the Noble Arms cards. The last Noble Knight specific card in the deck is 2 Last Chapter of the Noble Knights. This is pretty much a monster reborn of the deck if you control no monsters, but it also gives an equip to that monster as well from the graveyard. So this is a really good card, especially if you need to come back a little bit and get your plays off with this, and it's a great card, so you really want to run 2 of that one. Next up we have 2 Kaiser Colosseums. This is kind of your floodgate for the deck to go up against pretty much every deck in the game right now. You really want to run 2 of these because it's going to stop your opponent from synchro summoning or XC summoning. They could still technically fusion summon because, polymerization, you can use your hand as well, but this is going to really stop your opponent from trying to swarm you. And if you get your XCs out onto the field with 4,000 attack and they can't do anything to it, and you have your Kaiser Colosseum on the field, they're not going to be able to do much of anything against it. So this is a really good card to have. Then we have 2 Mystical Space Typhoons. 2 is fine. I don't really like having, no Mystical Space Typhoons in my decks. You can always side out for the 3rd one, obviously, so 2 is fine. 1 Reinforcement of the Army. It's unfortunate that it's down to 1, but, what can you do? So 1 Reinforcements, must have. Then we got Foolish Burial to get either your Queen Guinevere's into the graveyard, or even your Black Launcelin. You can just toss into the graveyard and use its effect. So this is a pretty versatile card for the deck, so 1 of those. Onto the traps. I run 3 traps. First off, we have 2 Call of the Haunted. I saw a few people actually running Call of the Haunted, and I wasn't really sure, because it's going to take up a space on your field, and what you want to use it for, you're probably going to wind up going into a synchro or a XC summon after using it, or most likely. But I haven't run into any real problems with this card. I've actually had a lot of success using 2 Call of the Haunted. And you can actually do some really good plays with using this card. It's a really helpful card, actually, to be able to utilize your graveyard again if all else fails. And last but not least, we have one Vanity's Emptiness. It works as, obviously, another Floodgate. You can only have one of these in a deck, but it's still good. I actually do like Kaiser Coliseum more, but Vanity's Emptiness is still a really good card, too. So that's it for the main deck. Just move that over here. And then we'll go to the extra deck. I run one Ignoble Knight of High Launcelin. It's a really good card. That's part of the reason why I'm running my Effect Veiler Tuner in the deck, so I can go into this. You can use Lady in the Lake, but I feel Effect Veiler is actually the better card of the two. And I don't know, this is just a very good card, and you can get some really good plays off of this card. So one of those. That's the only synchro of the deck, so we'll go into the Xyz. We run two King of the Noble Knights, Artorgas, and this is the rank 4 version. There is a rank 5 version as well, which I'll get into a little bit later when we get to the rank 5s. This is a good card. It pops your opponent's spells and traps, and sometimes if you want to get rid of that Call of the Haunted, you can actually pop your own Call of the Haunted if it's still in the field, so that can also be pretty good for that if you have the extra, destruction power, because it depends on how many Noble Arms you have on the field. You can pop up to the spell and traps up to that number that you have. Then we have one Heroic Champion Excalibur, one Blade Armor Ninja, one number 88 Heroic Champion, and one Star Liege Palin Dynamo. These are the warriors of the deck, the extra deck. They're all really good. They all have their uses, and they're all you don't really normally go into anything but your Noble Knight Xyz, but they're there. And then then we have Bujinte Tsukiyomi. It's the light Xyz, and it'll help draw power a little bit if need be. You have one Castel, one Abyss Dweller, and one Gaga Cowboy. Just your normal staples for your extra deck. And then to the rank 5s, we run triple Sacred Knight, Noble Knight of King Artorgas. This pops a monster every turn. This is the card that you're normally going to go into first turn if you can get your Madrock combo off. And it's just a great card. It's basically just the rank up version. Sometimes you can use your Excalibur card if it's in your graveyard to banish that one, and you can take one or the other and rank up or rank them down depending on which one you have in the field, and just trade them out. It depends on the situation too, and it does come in handy. So then we got one more card, and last but not least we have number 61 Volcasaurus, because it's still a good card. It's there if need be. You can win the game pretty quick like that. So that's it for the deck profile. If you have any suggestions, please drop some comments, because I'm always up for your suggestions and trying new things out. And I also hope my deck build helps you out, because that's why I make these videos, to help you with your decks. I'm not saying to copy my deck. Maybe you can get a couple ideas that I have for my deck for your deck, or maybe this will give you some interest in building a Noble Knight deck, because they are still good and they are cheaper than they used to be. And overall, it's a pretty cheap deck to build, and it's super fun. I always have to personally have a warrior deck every format, because I don't know, I just love warriors. They've always been my favorite. They were the first real, I guess, archetype deck that I built back in the day. I think of getting into the GX era almost, when you didn't want to just throw all these random cards together that were good and hope for the best. That was about a time where you had to have some kind of theme, and my first theme was really warriors, and I've always just had a warrior deck on me. So again, guys, thanks for watching. I know it's a little bit long of a video, but I hope you guys get something out of it. So if you like my videos, please subscribe, and you guys have a wonderful day.